Hello, I'm Mirella Bemmel, and I'll be talking about what matters most after retirement. When I think about retirement, I imagine white, sandy beaches, lounge chairs, palm trees, and a nice environment where I can just relax and not think about work or anything else. Retirement is a time when we actually start taking it easy, things slow down, and we don't have to deal with the hustle and bustle of traffic, going places, going to work, reporting every day. But finally, we can do whatever our heart desires. However, it takes some time to actually figure out how that transition is going to work for us. We actually sometimes want to rush into the process of retirement so that we can get a head start and jump right into all of the fun. But if we don't take careful time to really think it through, it might be more difficult to actually go through the process and enjoy it right away. Retirement is actually not a static, carefully scripted process, but it really is a very dynamic life experience with twists and turns and challenges and triumphs. So when we actually make that decision to finally go ahead and stop working, we have to decide, are we going to do it early, jump into early retirement? Do we want to actually retire at the time of around age 65 when most people decide this is when they'll do it? Or do we have to wait a little bit, postpone our retirement, and do it later on? This is a process that takes some thinking. We have to decide if our finances are in order. We have to also make that decision as to whether it's good for us psychologically speaking, because maybe we need a little bit more time to work because that makes us feel good. Most of us actually take pride in working. We take pride in going to work every day, reporting in, feeling important, having people call us to work on another project. We take on the project with pride, and at the end, when we get an evaluation, it makes us feel good. So when we actually transition into retirement, that's not going to be there anymore. So we have to be ready for that moment where suddenly we don't get the compliments from our boss anymore. When we make that decision to transition, we finally now have that moment where the alarm doesn't have to go off anymore. We no longer have to worry about traffic. We can go ahead and move on with things that we just make up on a day-to-day basis. 2020 definitely made for some challenging times. When Corona actually happened, some people might have been in the process of thinking when they would retire. Suddenly, they were faced with some decisions, perhaps dealing with early retirement. There are many stories of people who, for example, were looking forward to stopping work early, before the age of 65 and enjoying life. But with Corona, they might have to reconsider. There are also other people who perhaps were looking forward to that early retirement, but because of the pandemic, maybe had to come to a different conclusion. There are stories of, for example, people who are in the service industry, like nurses, who might feel a sense of obligation and say, I'd rather serve my community rather than retiring early. So they stay a little longer, and at this point, they don't know how long it might take. But then there are also stories of other people who were contemplating early retirement. The teachers, for example, who said, with this pandemic, I'm now facing health challenges. There's a story of a teacher, a 64-year-old man, who didn't think he would ever retire. He is so passionate about teaching. But when the pandemic showed up, he started to take care of his health, washed his hands, put on the mask like he should, social distanced. He even had his groceries delivered to his house because he didn't want to leave and take a risk. So the summer came around and things were still okay. However, the school board had to make a decision on when to go back and how. So when he finally heard that schools would reopen and his school did not require masks, he came to a point where he had to pause. He didn't want to retire, but now he was considering early retirement. This is something that not just this gentleman faced, but other people faced the same situation. And as a matter of fact, a survey was done in Florida to see what people would do with their retirement, and specifically teachers. And people who were not even considering early retirement now see that as a serious option because they're afraid of their health. So there are different sides of the story, but it's something that we need to keep in mind. And sometimes we just have to go with the flow. Another situation would be when people postpone their retirement. Postponed retirement would be when you actually don't retire at the age of 65, but you decide to work longer for different reasons. One could be that financially, you just are not ready. We've heard the advice time and time again from financial advisors that we have to save our money and get ready for, put the investments in place so that we can be ready for retirement. Because the truth is that sometimes pensions are either not there or they're not sufficient. So we need to have that extra nest egg to help us through. Unfortunately, we also know that a lot of people have no retirement savings. 1 in 4 Americans don't have any retirement savings at all. So for them, they might not even be able to retire at the age of 65. They might need to postpone it. The last category that I'd like to discuss in regards to the challenging times that we're in has to do with people that are struggling because of social isolation. As I mentioned earlier, retirement is a time when people look forward to traveling, doing things that they had to postpone before because they simply didn't have the time. But unfortunately, with this pandemic, people are now finding themselves at home, unable to leave, afraid that they're going to get sick. The cruise that they had booked before now has to be put on hold, and they don't know for how long. So they are finding themselves in a situation where they might even start to feel somewhat depressed. Depression is something that can happen in retirement anyway, but in this challenging time, it is even of more concern. I'd now like to shift things a little bit and go into different stages of retirement. When someone decides to retire, initially they are jubilant. They feel euphoric. There's a sense of euphoria because now they have all this freedom. They don't have to worry about deadlines that they need to meet. No alarm clock in the morning. They don't have to worry about getting into the car to commute. And there's no daily hassles that they need to worry about what to wear that particular day. So the sense of euphoria is there, and people look forward to the day that they can finally turn the key for the last time in their office and never go back. So that heightened sense sometimes stays with people for weeks, for months, even for a couple of years. But it's like a honeymoon phase where eventually it goes away. And sometimes people then go to the next stage, which is the stage of disappointment, where they're wondering, is this it? I was looking forward to this for so many years, and now they feel a set down. They're bored. What am I going to do today? I don't have a place to go. There's a loss of purpose. As I mentioned before, people sometimes place a lot of value on working and feeling that they're important. I remember a story of a former pediatrician. She worked as a pediatrician for many years, and eventually she decided to go into early retirement. But while she was working, she had basically every other week, I believe it was every other week, that she was on call. which meant that she was constantly back and forth. Her phone could not stop ringing. If it wasn't one of her patients, then it was a nurse calling her, or it was a colleague calling her to make sure that she comes in to take care of another sick patient. So she went on like that for years, felt a sense of importance. There were calls in the middle of the night when she was on call. Back in the day when there were beepers, her beeper wouldn't stop going off because she was constantly called upon to take care of a sick patient. But when she retired, the phone stopped ringing. Even the people that were considered friends stopped calling. And all of a sudden, the house was quiet. And she had to go through a sense of loss personally, but also a loss of purpose. What am I going to do now? So this is something that can be very difficult. Missing your colleagues, people that you've actually built a relationship with for so many years, and you got so close, they felt like family. Even those people stop calling sometimes. So that disappointment can be very difficult. It's something that we have to prepare for mentally, and it can actually take a little while for us to go through that phase, but we have to make sure that we allow ourselves to go through it. Then we get to the next stage of retirement, which is refocusing. When we refocus, this is when we start to make that shift. We have that wake-up call like, wait a minute, this is the time for me to start pursuing things that I really enjoyed doing, but I simply did not have the time for. This is time to give back to the community, to reconnect with our core values. This is the perfect time for that. Reassess what our strengths really are, pursue hobbies that we actually put aside before, looking for a new direction, a new sense of purpose. Find out our why. What is our purpose? Why am I here? There are people who actually go back to work as a consultant, for example, and they might not even ask for money. They just want to give back to the community. This is that time when you can actually do that and you make a difference. You set up your legacy. It's a perfect time for that. Eventually, we then get to the last stage, which is the steady stage. The steady state is actually when we're finally comfortable. We have gone through that refocusing, and now we're comfortable. We're now making adjustments to our routine, and that's okay. If I don't wake up at 6 o'clock today, it's fine. I'm not in a rush. So the comfortable stage is very nice, but it's important to keep in mind that we have to have things built in every day so that we wake up with a sense of purpose. That now becomes part of our steady state. And we also welcome the predictability. We know that 3 times a week, we're going to the library to help out. We know that once a week, we tutor the little child across the street who needs help with math. We also know that the food bank can call us anytime because they might need help. If we're available, we're going to go ahead and help the community. So there are many things that we can actually do, but it's up to us to explore and figure out. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that this is not something that's just going to come overnight. It takes time to get to know ourselves. We have to repurpose, and we have to take a moment to find our why.
I'm Howard Housen. So you've had your euphoric feelings. You've gone through disappointment. You have done the pivot. And now you are in a steady state. What I want to offer you is a chance to do some organizing as you go through steadying yourself. And so there are 4 major critical areas that you want to focus on. There's personal development, there's health, finances, and community. You want to consider these as interlocking concentric circles, where the notion is that the functions of one affect the functions of the others. You see, if something happens in finance, it's going to have an impact on what happens in health. And so it's a very useful tool to be able to understand how these are connected. And so as you organize this pivoting and creating a steady state for yourself, if you can limit the number of areas that you want to look at, it makes your chance of organizing so much easier. I want to use personal development, however, as the kind of anchoring piece, the foundation, the kind of cornerstone of the four pieces. And if we want to consider the personal development as a kind of centering, see it as a continuum. And so on one side towards the left, you'll have what is called the automatic phase. That is when things are put in place, they are natural, they are genetic, they are built in, they are coded. You see, as humans, we don't have to worry about breathing. We don't have to worry about growing. Those things are put in place for us and they're automatic. And we don't have to spend time worrying about them. The other side is the intentional. You see, this is the planned, the designed, the purposed, and then one of my favorite words is this is the orchestrated phase. This beautiful melody and synchronetic moment when the pieces come together. That's why that's my favorite piece. It's orchestrated. The notion is you are in charge here. You make decisions. You decide what's going to happen. You see, during your work years, the automatic phase was in place. You see that the engine of what fueled your aspirations, it was a source of your major accomplishments. You were motivated to provide for your family. You need to advance professionally. You did not need anything else. See, all those things pushed you to personal development. But then comes the retirement phase. Here's where you must shift to the intentional phase. You do not want to have that phase become automatic. You're deciding. You're making decisions about what you do. This is where that intentional piece, that purposed, that design, that orchestration is happening. Just think about the kinds of things you want to do. Let me simply have you engage with me in this whole idea of the moving from the automatic to the intentional. Consider an athlete, one who is gifted, let's say a sprinter, who has natural skills and ability. Doesn't have to do much to go fast. But that sprinter will never ever achieve his full potential until he carefully orchestrates his practices, until he makes decisions about planning how much time he's going to put in for practice. He has to essentially take that given, that automatic gift, and he has to then put in the work to make it happen. You had that during your working years. Now you're retired. You need the intentional piece. And this is what is exciting about this phase, you see, because now you are making decisions that you know will lead to your satisfaction. You're not simply running on automatic pilot. You're not being motivated just because you have to provide for your family. You have some goals in mind. You have things you want to do. You have places you want to go. And you're making very critical decisions about what you do. So those working years got you to this point. Now you have to fill in the pieces. You have to make decisions about what is it you want to accomplish yet. And so this phase is extremely critical. It is exciting. It puts you in charge. It allows you to become a lifelong learner. The motivations you had during the working years are now replaced by very careful thought. Decisions you make because you want to do these things. Let me see if I can engage you in maybe some activities that might play out here during this phase. Learn to play the piano, for example. Something that you've always wanted to do. Learn to play the guitar. I'm actually talking about myself here. After I retired, one of my lifelong dreams was to be able to get on the piano and play the guitar. I bought myself a guitar, but please don't ask me yet to play your tune. But I'm getting there. Learn a new language. This will certainly excite your travels and allow you then to do the kind of communicating you want to do when you get to that place you've always wanted to. Learn to cook. One of my favorite meals that I wanted to surprise my wife and take some kind of notion, surprising her and letting her feel very good about my cooking. I wanted to learn how to make cashew chicken with broccoli. And I secretly looked for the recipe, practice, and yes, I surprised her. Learn to dance. Being able to get on the dance floor with your wife or partner and somehow make those moves that probably didn't know you had. Listen to inspiring poetry or music, or better yet, how about writing it? You want to extend your comfort zone, move beyond the boundaries that you might have set for yourself. Let me speak from personal experience here. See, when I retired, I had all of these dreams and wanted to do a whole lot of things. What I discovered, however, was that I had to fight these limiting thoughts, always second-guessing myself. Can I do it? Am I too old? Have I passed my prime? That is one of those things that you have to overcome. Those limiting moments that actually have you questioning your abilities. You have to step out of that comfort zone. Creating a routine for your health. You want to devote some time to making yourself whole. Exercise on a daily basis. Follow a healthy diet. Get regular checkups. Those seem to be the given, but you certainly want to have some routine in your life. I'm assuming that at this stage your finances are in order. Ever so often, however, you need to kind of check to see that you're not spending too much. Remind yourself of the budget you had and make sure you stay on task. This next one, the community, is probably a key factor here. So you want to stay connected because, you see, we are as humans designed for socialization and having social contacts. Stay close to family. Build around you those individuals that you respect and who respect you. You want to be able to somehow give back to the community. Take part in community activities. Become an online tutor. Do things that somehow make you feel good about who you are. Probably one of the most engaging things is to know that you've done something to affect somebody's life. I think Mirella talked about the whole notion of giving back and purpose. This allows you to do that. Allows you to somehow recover the purpose that you had when you were working. Now you can give to the community. As you pull together that phase of refocusing, I would like to leave you with a couple of questions, a few questions that you might want to ask as you ponder what is happening in that particular phase for you. When you have some time, just get a pencil and paper and see if you can answer some of these questions. What are you most proud of? What core values do you want to leave your grandchildren and your children? What is your biggest regret in life? What 3 words describe you best? What do you want your legacy to be? And what is yet on your bucket list? Something that you've always wanted to do, but you haven't done it yet. See, pulling together all of these pieces allow you to be intentional, to be purposed, to design, and to orchestrate your life from this moment on. It's an exciting place to be. The wonderful things to discover, great things to experience. It takes planning, however, and hopefully we've provided you with some of those tools that will allow you to live the kind of life you've always dreamed about in retirement. I am looking forward to it. I'm excited about what's going to happen, and I know you can be too.